Our next topic today is soybean aphids. Darren, what's the right threshold to spray soybean aphids?
Well, this is one of the most, well, for me, it's probably the most fun thing to talk about is soybean aphids with Brian, because he gets so excited about this and so worked up about it. You know, soybean aphids are a huge issue for soybean farmers in our part of the country and really across the world, Brian. The soybean aphid is there in many countries, and soybean aphids can take easily 10 bushels of yield. So it is a really, really big deal, and it's important to know when you need to spray, what you need to spray. So Brian wants to get right into the when you need to spray department. So what is it, Brian? When do you need to spray?
Okay, well, here's the thing. When you look at South Dakota State University thresholds, and with the price of beans the way it is today, you're probably looking at the R2 stage, or full flower stage, at somewhere less than 10 aphids per plant. When you get a little later in the season, like R4 or full pod, then you're probably talking in the 30, 40, 50 aphids per plant. Real late in the season, then you might be up to 100, 150 per plant.
Okay, if you're a non-farmer and you're watching this show and you're saying, well, boy, it sounds like a lot of bugs, 10, 30, 50, you know, it sounds like a lot, but if you have never seen what an aphid looks like, they're very small. You can see them with the naked eye just fine, but they aren't very big at all. So you're saying on a whole big soybean plant that it may only take 10 of these tiny little aphids to justify spraying.
Well, and the reason why we say that is because you have to look at threshold numbers. And with all insects, there are what's called economic thresholds. And what those economic thresholds are based on is how many bugs you have and the damage they can do, and you have to look at what the value of the crop is and what the cost of the treatment is. Well, in terms of the cost of the treatment, you're down under $4 an acre now when you figure insecticide cost. And that's for full rates of stuff. So it's so inexpensive, and you can tank mix that insecticide with glyphosate. You can tank mix that insecticide with fungicide. So in terms of the cost of an application, the cost of a trip, in other words, if let's say it costs you $2 to run your sprayer over the field, if you're throwing fungicide and insecticide out there, I'm gonna only put $1 towards the fungicide, $1 towards the insecticide, you know what I mean? So grand total, I'm looking at $5 for the insecticide treatment. It's nothing. And if soybeans are $8, or maybe in your area, they're gonna be worth $9, it does not take much yield loss, and it's a big deal.
Well, that's the other side of it, is the economic potential for farmers if they can control these aphids. If we're talking maybe a 5 or 10 bushel gain or yield you're going to protect by controlling aphids, well, that could be $50 to $100 you're going to protect with a $4 treatment.
Right, but the whole thing is what an economic threshold is where do I break even? Where's the break even? So what we're saying is the break even, if you figure $5 for your cost, at the R2 or full flower stage, you're around, 5 or 10 aphids per plant. That's the break even. Okay, so if you had 50 aphids per plant, that's when you're really going to start gaining lots more yield.
Okay, let's talk about this, Brian, because I don't know about this break even stuff. I know that when you've got just a few aphids out there, it's going to hurt your yield, because the aphids, number one, are a piercing and sucking insect, where they're going to pierce into that leaf and suck juice out. And when you think about that, you say, wow, they're going to actually pierce, just like a mosquito would pierce you. Well, what happens a lot of times when you have a bug or a cut that pierces your skin, you get an infection around that.
Starts to swell up.
So it's not just the cut or the piercing and sucking, it's that disease can follow right in after these things.
Yep,
that's what scares me.
Absolutely, and that's why a lot of people, well, like us on our farm, we've been mixing insecticide and fungicide for quite a few years now and getting good response from that, because in order to spray, we're going to have to see aphids out there. We don't just go out and spray without aphids. That's something we don't advise you to do. We would suggest you wait until you've got some aphids out there, till you get at least close to the economic threshold, then go spray the bugs. And at the same time, you can add in fungicide, and fungicide prices also come way down in price. So grand total, like on our farm, we'll only use a half rate of fungicide because we're in a relatively dry area of the country. I mean, grand total between insecticide and fungicide, we're only spending $10. So we only need just over a 1 bushel yield gain in order to make it pay, and most of the time we're gaining 5 to 10 or even more.
Well, soybean aphids have been such a big problem on our farm and many farms in the upper Midwest that growers are not just looking at, well, I'm going to wait till they come and I'm going to do something. A lot of growers are starting right when they're planting the seed, putting something on the seed.
Well, yeah.
Will those seed treatments actually help with soybean aphids?
Yeah, okay, so there's Trilix 6000, there's Cruiser Max, and then there's the new Innovate, or there's Acceleron as well. And all those have insecticide in them. With that insecticide, you're going to get great control of bean leaf beetles and some other bugs early in the season, but soybean aphids come real late. what we usually figure on our farm is we're going to gain about 50% control on the aphids. So it'll hold them back. It might prevent us from having to spray 2 times for aphids, but it's certainly not going to kill them all. You still have to be out there scouting.
Okay, so when we're spraying the foliar insecticides, here's the other question we get a lot. All right, I'm going to go spray, maybe it's about flowering time. How long of a residual control do I get? Will I kill those aphids season long?
Nope.
Or how many times will I have to respray?
Yeah, and that just depends on how bad that flush is. You'll probably have, with a full rate of insecticide, full rate now, you'll probably have 2 weeks worth of residual, and you might get a little bit more than that in terms of repellency. In other words, there isn't enough left to kill anything, but they stay away from it for a little longer. So figure 2 to 3 weeks at the very, very most.
Well, wait a second. This is really confusing because a lot of the chemical companies have got 21-day, 28-day, even 45-day windows that they say, well, if you have, if you have any aphids come back in 45 days, well, doesn't that lead you to believe as a farmer applying the product that, wow, I'm good for 45 days. I can just go fishing for a few weeks.
Yeah, it does, but it's just a guarantee program, okay? They are doing nothing in terms of saying it's going to kill them for that entire time. It's just that during that window, if you need to respray, they'll give you free product. There are many companies out there offering good respray programs. The products we've been using on our farm are Silencer and Declare, but there are a number of good ones out there.
Okay, let me give you another tough question now. A lot of times with aphids, they start in patches or hot spots where they'll be really congregated in a small area. How do I know, man, is this hot spot a big enough deal that I should treat the whole field? Or, because it's not like there's going to be 10 aphids on every single plant throughout the whole field. There might be 1,000 in one little area and then nothing for a big area too.
You have to average it out. So you need to be a math genius in order to figure this out.
I don't think so. I just see this. When you've got those hot spots, you'll see that all the way until harvest. You'll have black plants in this little area at harvest time. So when you see those hot spots, in my opinion, you go out and you start treating because those hot spots are just going to expand. The aphid numbers will get so huge in those little hot spots that the aphids will actually start developing wings and moving out to different parts of the field. So when you've got them congregated and you haven't destroyed your whole field, why not treat them and clean up those hot spots, and then they aren't going to spread to the rest of your field?
Well, once again, soybean aphids are one of the worst problems you can possibly get in soybeans. Make sure you're spraying early and often if you need to, just to preserve your yield.
One other thing you'll need to do to preserve those yields is keep your weeds under control. Can you identify this week's Weed of the Week?